people, it's me, Anja. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new recent reads video. The first book on this list is called Explorers on Black Ice Bridge. This story was really good and I really enjoyed it. If you didn't know, this book is middle-grade fantasy. I rated it 4 stars, and this story is the 3rd book in the Polar Bear Explorers Club trilogy. This story was really good because I really enjoyed the well-developed world building. The world building of this trilogy is probably my favorite element of this entire story because it was just so well done. It was so intriguing and it hooks you in right away, right next to the well-developed characters. You know what I mean? Like, Stella is such a wonderful, lovely character and she's so realistic, and I really wanted to like reach through the pages and just bring her out. You know what I mean? Like, she's the type of character that I would love to just hang out with because I just really enjoy her personality and how she's so compatible with her friends and she's so like supportive and loyal to them, and I really enjoyed her character arc. You know what I mean? Like, this book is so good and this trilogy is so underrated and it's so good, and the action-packed, fast-paced plot was no exception because it was absolutely so good. Honestly, like I said, I rated this book 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, and I would say that I enjoyed this book more than the second one, but not more than the first one. You know what I mean? So overall, like I said, I rated this book 4 stars, and I would highly recommend it. The second book on this list is called Real. This story follows a young, nonverbal autistic person who's determined to prove her intelligence to everyone, even those who think that she's not very smart. This story was so good. It's middle-grade contemporary and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars because it felt so emotionally touching. You know what I mean? This book is so good and it definitely deserves all of its hype and so much more. The autism representation felt so good and just so well researched and just so realistic. You know what I mean? Trying to prove your intelligence in an ableist society is like very realistic and very timely and somewhat relatable. You know what I mean? This book was so good. But even aside from the autism representation, this story was just so emotionally touching. I really enjoyed the main character. I just really enjoyed her as like a character and a person because she just felt so well developed and just well researched and just so realistic, and the plot was so intriguing as well. You know what I mean? Like, this book was so good. It was absolutely so good, and like I said, I gave it 4 stars. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Ravage the Dark. For those who don't know, this book is a YA fantasy sequel to Scavenge the Stars, which was a retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo, and I really enjoyed it last year. And I gave Scavenge the Stars 4 stars. However, I gave this book 3.5 stars because even though I enjoyed the action-packed, fast-paced plot and the well-developed characters and the romance and the world building, I just really preferred the first one. I don't really know why. Like, I can't really pinpoint on one specific reason, and I wish there was one specific reason, you know what I mean? But I think just overall, I was more interested and more like captivated by what was happening in the first one than in this one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't regret reading this book by any means or anything like that, and I was intrigued as to how the author was going to wrap everything up, but I think I was more interested in that than the bits and pieces as to how she got there, if that makes any sense. You know, essentially, I did enjoy this book, and I do think that this duology is underrated. I just don't think it's like super duper underrated, if that makes any sense. Essentially, I gave this book 3.5 stars because it kind of let me down, and I kind of wish that I was more intrigued by what was happening like I was with the first one. You know what I mean? So essentially, overall, like I said, I preferred the first one in this duology, but this one was still solid. So yeah, like I said, I gave it 3.5 stars. So yeah. The next book on this list is called Namesake, written by Adrienne Young. For those who don't know, this book is a YA fantasy sequel to Fable, which I really enjoyed last September. This story was really solid, and I really enjoyed it because I really enjoyed the world building, the action-packed, fast-paced plot, the romance, the well-developed characters. You know what I mean? Like, I ended up rating this book 4 stars because it was really good, and it's just really like intriguing and interesting, and this author is so talented. However, aside from that, I will say that I preferred Fable over Namesake, just because Namesake kind of became more political than I was anticipating. I don't really love political fantasies. You know what I mean? Like, they're not really my cup of tea. So yeah, that's the only element that prevented me from enjoying this book more than the previous one. But at any rate, I rated both books 4 stars, and I think that this duology is really underrated, and it's really, really good. And this author is so talented, and she is so underrated. You know what I mean? I don't remember if I said when I read Fable, if I enjoyed Fable more than Sky in the Deep, but if I were to rank all of Adrienne Young's books that I've read so far, I think that I would rank them Fable, Sky in the Deep, and then Namesake. You know what I mean? Like, I rated all of her books 4 stars, but that's just my personal ranking. So yeah, anyway, aside from that, I would say that I highly recommend Namesake, and I highly recommend this entire duology because it's really, really good. And so yeah. The next book on this list is called Follow Your Arrow. This story is YA contemporary, and I really, really enjoyed it. It follows Cece, who has a very online life, and after her girlfriend breaks up with her, she's afraid that her followers might drop her too. So when conflict arises when she meets a new guy who's unaware of her online life, she doesn't tell him that she's an influencer. You know? So essentially, this story was really, really good. I had really, really low expectations for this story, and this book ended up exceeding those expectations, and it was just so good. First and foremost, I really, really enjoyed the discussion of bisexuality and biphobia. The main character, Cece, is bisexual, and the story just felt so good and just so wonderful, and I can really see like bisexual people really like relating to this story. You know what I mean? Because I felt like the conversations discussed in this story were so timely and are so important and just so wonderful and just well thought out and well researched. You know what I mean? But even aside from that wonderful representation, the romance was so fluffy and just so lovely and just so well done, and the character in Cece was just so good. You know what I mean? Like, she felt so relatable and just so realistic, and the story was so emotionally touching because her voice just felt so real. You know what I mean? Like, this book was so good. I ended up giving it 4 stars because it was just so good and just made me feel all the right feelings, if that makes any sense. Like I said, this story is so emotionally touching and it's so good, and with that, I highly, highly recommend it. So, in conclusion, my favorite book on this list was Follow Your Arrow, and my least favorite book on this list was Ravage the Dark by default, because that's the only one that I ended up giving 3 stars, because I rated the rest of the books on this list 4 stars. So anyway, I highly recommend every single book on this list. So yeah. Anyway, in conclusion, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the candle emoji if you made it this far in the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!